welcome to my YouTube tutorial on how I made this amazing Epcot ball from Walt Disney World in Florida wall painting to kind of give us a little feeling, a memory of the parks while we're at home and we're sadly not in Disney World. I watched a lot of blogs, read a lot of blogs, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I just thought it would be helpful to sort of film my journey and how I approached it, what I used, steps I took, maybe some helpful tips for anyone that's thinking of doing the same thing at home. This is my first YouTube video, so any support would be really appreciated. So if you can like, and if you're interested in subscribing, I will also be endeavouring to do a similar sort of design elsewhere in my house. We'll link below the products that I have used if you're interested in sort of copying them. One thing that I use, which I hadn't seen anybody else use previously, which I thought was really useful, is a laser level. So we put it on a tripod and we used it to make sure that when we masking tape the lines going vertically and horizontally, they were as accurate as possible. So I really recommend getting one of these. Made it so much easier. Also, the thing that I didn't even consider how much I was going to use, I just kept reordering it and reordering it, is the masking tape. This is 6mm masking tape that I use. I see a lot of others had used that sort of similar width, and I went with that and feel really pleased with the sizing for the borders that we ended up with, so really happy. Also, you need normal masking tape to tape around the edges, around the perimeter of your wall and your ceiling, to keep those edges crisp and to protect the surrounding areas. Thin brushes, get a nice pack of thin paint brushes, because you'll do a lot of touching up the painting edges and bits at the end, which again took longer than I anticipated. The main product for the painting is this black Dulux paint. It's walls and ceilings rich black, and it's in a silk finish. Now this proved to be very useful without me even realizing it, because I purchased the silk for the black, which becomes the undercoat and is what you then see as your black edges to separate all the triangles. But because it was in a silk finish, it's actually got a nicer sheen to it, where it's just that little bit more reflective than the matte paint which we used for the triangles. So accidentally that worked out really nice, that the black outlines reflect the light a little bit nicer, and as a little bit more of a contrast to the matte for the wall paint. So I actually really recommend doing that. For the all-important wall colour for the triangles, which I really laboured over, I spent a lot of time trying to think of what was the right grey, how much of a contrast did I want between the three greys, because you've sort of got this light, mid and more of a darker grey for the three different triangle colours. I actually ended up picking this Valspar, which you get in the UK from B&Q, and where you can choose different colour swatches and they mix the paint up as to which you've selected, and I'm sure they exist in many places, and that actually gave me more choice to sort of really hone in on the greys that I wanted for the wall. I ended up choosing from the Valspar Grey Morn for the lightest grey, Weathered Cottage for the mid grey, and Battlement Grey for the dark. I bought this size, which is the 2.5 litre paint, so one of each for each of the greys, and that was more than enough to do this size room, which is huge, and it's about 8 foot high, about 22 feet long, so it's a big space. And again, I only had one of these black Dulux 2.5 litres to do all of the black wall, which had 2 coats in the end. As with all DIY projects, one thing I did underestimate was just how long, particularly because it's such a big wall, that it was going to take me with all the stages, letting it dry, the masking, laying all the masking tape took quite long. So my advice would also be to give yourself plenty of time if you're trying to get the project done to a deadline, give yourself probably 3 times as much time as you think it's going to take you, because it is a slow going project. Absolutely worth it in the end. So happy with the result. I'm just delighted that it all worked and it looks as fantastic as it does. So hopefully you find this video useful, and thank you for watching. To show you how I have been working out where to now put these horizontal lines, which will form part of the trifecta design within the bigger triangles, the vertical ones. So the way I have been thinking about it is, considering if this is the base of the larger triangles, I have been plotting a line that is 6 inches from the base here and 6 inches from the base here, from the centre line, because we have those lines here. I mean, you can work it out if you didn't put the lines in, because we did them every 9 inches along the horizontal line. So like that, there to there is 9, there to there is 9, and so on. So from here, plotting 6 inches up from the baseline of the isosceles triangle and 6 inches down, and then doing that from the next one, doing 6 inches from here, and then down here 6 inches from the base, and then it's always 6 inches from the base, and then you are running a piece of tape from those points but through the point of the triangles, so they're sort of like a mirror image of each other, like this one reflects this one. So from that 6 inch point, you're running this piece of tape here that's 12 inches as one full run top to bottom. So you're kind of having less bitty bits of tape rather than sort of doing them all separately. So that's the same for when you then do the ones that are the other way up. As long as it's always 6 inches from the base and the tape always runs through the points of the isosceles triangle, that's kind of how to approach it. So I've been using a laser level to line them up to try and get them sort of as straight relative to each other as possible. So if we were then going to do this one, I do my best. Sometimes it's a little bit, you have to sort of jiggle it until you're kind of happy with it. Laser it up, line the laser up through the points of the isosceles triangles and then through that 9 inch marker on the base, and then with the ruler standing to the side of the laser so you're not blocking it out, just do your best to kind of line that up central as much as you can. And then so 6 inches up from this baseline, which is 15 on my ruler, and then 6 inches down, which is 3 inches on this ruler. So then this gap is 6 inches and this is 6 inches, and then jump down here to this sort of mirror line of those two triangles. Line that up again as neat, as closely as you can. 6 inches from there and 6 inches from there, and then keeping the laser in place. If you're using the laser, the tape is then going to run through the points of the triangles. So we have one piece of tape that is running through both bits. So I would put my tape on here, kind of run it so that the laser line sits on top, push it down. I've got a little pair of scissors just to snip it to give me a nice clean edge running down there, sharp edge, and then just sort of run your tape pushing down as you go, pushing it down, and then just sort of looking for that chalk dot, snip, and then just sort of pushing. I'll push them down as you go because sometimes they don't stick firmly. And then same thing again, so it's going to be 6 inches from the base here. Start, put the little bit of tape on. Laser line sits over the tape, press it down. Sometimes you have to lift it up and readjust it a little bit, that's okay. All the way down to the floor for that one. Snip and press. And then the same thing up there, go up the ladder, and then it'll go from that point through the point and actually up to the ceiling for this one. And if I move the laser off, you can just see, and then just carry on. So we've got the large isosceles triangles with the vertical lines running through them, so it's 12 inches from the points, 12 inches, 12 inches. Now we start to lay the tape for the trifecta part within these triangles. So some of these work out nicely, where if you go from the point coming down like so, kind of lay the tape carefully, run it to the corner edge, corner point, to that vertex there, like so, and then you can actually run it through to this one, because it would run through to that vertical tape there like so. And then you just need a good little pair of scissors just to make a cut just slightly inside so that it doesn't overlap and keeps that edge nice and crisp. And again, push it down with your finger. I've had quite a few peeling at the edges already, so that'll be a fun job at the end. And then similarly, if you went back to that point again, you could have it coming off now from this one, again, so just taking your time to line it up so that the tape edges will keep a crisp lines between the sections. Hold your finger on that bit, run it to this left corner, push it down, and then same piece of tape, sort of half line it up, and then push your finger down here to that point of that vertical center line, and then just snip and then push it down, and then kind of sort of work through doing sort of all of them methodically, or you can just sort of shoot it off wherever you can see fit. But essentially from here you're going to these sort of starburst points, which are the sort of left and right corners of the isosceles triangle, off like so, and just kind of work through like that. So if you had this one, from the upside down one, it would run through that sort of starburst point. That's like where you'd have the lights on the actual EPCOT ball, and then run it along